Thank you for tuning in to this e-learning resource on moving money safely, which has been specifically created for Charity Fraud Awareness Week 2018. I'm Tony Blake. I'm the Head of Fraud Prevention for the dedicated Card and Payment Crime Unit. Now that unit's a police unit. It's based in London, but we have a national remit to investigate payment fraud in relation to organised criminality on behalf of the banking industry. The unit is fully funded by the banking industry, and we work with them to investigate fraud on their behalf. My role in that is to do education and awareness with charity groups, with businesses, with our members and their staff and their customers. Firstly, I want to talk about something called social engineering. Now that's a topic or a name that you may be familiar with, you may not. But it's something that's been around probably for centuries. As long as there's been people, there's been other people trying to trick them out of something. But the term social engineering is probably less known. The definition I like is shown there: the clever manipulation of the natural human tendency to trust. And the most important word for me in that definition is the word trust, because that's where a fraudster wants you. A fraudster wants you to be trusting. And with most nice people, their default position is trust. So if someone calls you or emails you or sends you a text message, most nice people, they want to trust that call, that email, that text message is coming from the person or the organisation it's purporting to come from. And that you as an individual, or you as an organisation might be thinking, well, I want to trust this and my default position is trust, but I'm looking to see if there's anything in it which gives me a reason to distrust it. And do you know what? A good fraudster will never drop you from that position of trust. That's their aim, to keep you at that level of trust. And as I say, a good fraudster will never do that. So that's why we all have to be careful. Now, I've highlighted three particular areas that I want to talk about today. There are telephone calls, emails, and text messages. And, you know, telephone calls, people will know stuff around you and your organisation. I think that's the most important thing to know, and that's all part of that trust thing. So if someone does call you up and does know some information about who's involved in the charity, who's behind it, who holds a particular office within the charity, it doesn't mean to say that that person is who they say they are. If someone calls up and purports to be from the bank and they know details about the account that your charity holds with that bank, it doesn't mean to say it's necessarily the bank. And that's really an important message, and it's all about making sure you know who it is. Secondly, in relation to emails, you may or may not be aware, but there's a real sort of common email scam that's around businesses and other organisations, and I know this is particularly relevant for charities, and it's known either as CEO fraud or bogus boss or business email compromise, and it's where a fraudster is able to send an email which looks like it's come internally from someone fairly senior within the organisation to someone who deals with the finance, asking them to make a payment away to an organisation. So they'll give them a sort code and they'll give them an account number and say, can you make this payment urgently, and then get back to me, let me know that it's done. But of course, as I say, that email is very cleverly disguised by a fraudster to make it look like it's coming from someone within the organisation. And the other one with emails often is an invoice, where again they make it look like perhaps the invoice is coming from a regular supplier of an organisation, and again they let them know perhaps that that supplier's bank account details have changed, and they'll send an email or even a phone call in saying, oh, can you just make a note that we've changed our bank account, we've switched bank accounts, we're now with a different bank, and here's our new sort code and an email address. And again, if that organisation, if that charity is trusting and takes them on face value, they'll change those details within their system. And of course, any future payments or the first few future payments that go out will go out to the fraudster's account, because the fraudster has control of that bank account, not to the supplier. And of course, until the supplier realises they've not been paid, contacts the organisation and says, hang on a minute, I've not been paid. And you realise what's happened. They're the two sort of main ones that are affecting organisation and businesses that I want to sort of highlight. But again, it's like emails that you receive at home. Check them and make sure, verify that they are coming from the legitimate source. that they're purporting to come from. Text messages, businesses are now getting text messages purporting to come from all different sorts of organisations, banks, all sorts of different HMRC, but it's important to note that a fraudster can make a text message appear to come from any organisation, and if you've had a previous text from that organisation, a genuine text, they can actually make that their text message appear in the thread of previous text messages that you've had from that organisation, which is a very clever bit of social engineering, because you'll think it's must be definitely from that organisation, that bank, whoever, because it's in the same conversation thread. Every other text message you had will definitely be from that person. So again, you can't trust that. And lastly, in relation to phone calls, fraudsters can make any number appear on your handset, and often they will now say to businesses, to individuals, to organisations, if you look at the number that's appeared on your handset and compare it with the number that you've got for the bank, so on the back of your bank card, you can see it's coming from the bank or that organisation. Well, as I say, a fraudster can make any number appear on your handset. Okay, so authorised push payments. As it said, this is where individuals, businesses or organisations are tricked into sending money to a fraudster. So I've given you a couple examples on previously about CEO fraud or business email compromise. But generally, the reason that fraudsters are doing this is because banks have very good systems now and good defences in the background, trying with various methods that they have and software that they have, identifying which is their real customer and which isn't their real customer. As you'll probably be aware, some of them even have voice recognition now. And they've got a lot of different defences. So what the fraudster is now trying to do is get individuals and organisations to actually trick them into making the payment for them. And the CEO fraud is just one example of that. So if they're able to trick you into making the payment and the bank sees that payment coming legitimately from your systems, your computer systems, your computers, from an IP address that they know, then they're more likely to let the payment go through. So that's why the fraudster is targeting those payments. And currently, one of the sort of downsides of that is, and it's being looked into at the moment, is if you've made the payment and it subsequently goes to fraud, there is a chance that the bank may not pay you back. So that's an important aspect to it. Again, that's, as I say, that's being looked into currently at the moment. So authorised push payments, make sure that you know who you're talking to, you know who you're making the payment to, verify everything before you make that payment. So top tips, going back on what we've spoken about, the real top tip is to stop, think, and take 5. It's part of the national Take 5 campaign, and it's all about stopping and thinking, giving yourself a bit of time before you do anything. Don't be rushed or pressurised into doing anything, because that's what the fraudster wants you to do. And many of the frauds that you'll be aware of, well, I need to make this payment now. You need to do it now. There's a problem. Do it now. And they're trying to rush you, and that should be ringing alarm bells in your mind. So it's all about stopping and thinking and taking a bit of time. I've mentioned the word verify a few times. Verify that the person making a request, whether it's on the phone, whether it's in an email, whether it's in a text message, really is coming from who they say they are. And you need to check that by perhaps calling them back on a number that you know is correct, checking that it's coming from them. Did you checking that supplier? Can I just check with you that you did just email us and give us new bank details? Check if someone's wanting to make a payment. Ring them back, email them back on an email that you know is correct. Obviously, don't just hit it with reply in order to get back to them via email. So always check via a trusted source. Don't ring them back on a number you're given. Don't go back via an email address you're given. And put a control system in place within your organisation in respect of making payments. Have you got a system in place whereby you can make sure that at least 2 people perhaps know that if you're going to make a payment, they both double check it before a payment gets sent away to someone. Just having a control system in place around payments, and not just one person does it on the strength of a phone call, on the strength of an email. It's all about that sort of stuff. Okay, so thank you for listening, and please don't forget to check out the free resources available as part of Charity Fraud Awareness Week. This includes a brand new help sheet on moving money safely, which has been released today. You can find these resources on the Fraud Advisory Panel website or by following #CharityFraudOut on Twitter.